热爱的东西，然后对很多事情都有兴趣的人也找不到一个平台去听一些这方面的东西，所以我就想成立这么一个平台，其实都是我周围的人，让他们来分享自己的爱好兴趣，然后最好能激励到更多人对这方面感兴趣。然后我应该 so far 我应该讲过很多，比方说古典音乐啊、陶瓷、手表，然后书法各类的话题。然后这次是讲瑜伽，然后我接下来还有人讲催眠，讲社会学，有讲登山。然后还有其他各类的话题，就我们的宗旨就是要让所有有爱好、有热情的人都可以上来分享他们的热情。然后这一期的 speaker 是艾玛，然后她是我大学同学，她是从高中开始就接触瑜伽，然后大学比较开始集中学习，然后去年的时候拿到了 yoga instructor 那个 license， 所以她现在已经是一个自己可以教瑜伽的一个老师了。然后我们现在请艾玛今天会英文讲，主要是因为她学的时候很多那些 terms 都是用英文学，那些肌肉她不会讲中文，然后我们就觉得中英文夹杂可能有点怪，所以她就会用英文来讲。然后大家听不懂可以举手，虽然她也不一定会翻译。现在请艾玛老师来给大家翻译。
Before we start the class, I'd like everyone just to turn your head around and look at the person who sits next to you and see how do they sit. Like if you are sitting upright, or if you're slouching your back, or if you put one leg on top of the other, or your head is forward of your body. No, I just want to first raise the awareness of this. And second of all, I would like to invite everyone to stand up. Oh, leave a little bit space with your neighbor, yeah, so you don't knock them over. So 1 feet distance between your feet. 1 feet distance. 1 feet distance, and your pinky toe, your little toe in line with your heel. And never bend your knee. And then tighten up your social set. And tilt your pelvis forward. Bring your navel into your lower back. And then bring your palm facing forward. Squeeze your upper back. And you don't want to do this. So you make sure that your shoulder and your pelvis and your knee and your ankle is on the same straight line. And then slightly tap your chin inside so that your head is on top of your neck. And then close your eyes. And close your eyes. Everyone close your eyes. So I like to start with 3 deep inhale and exhale. Close your eyes, man. Inhale from the nose and exhale from the mouth. And exhale really loud. Let's do it together. Bring your palm together in front of your heart center and gently bow forward. And thanks for your time. I hope I can intrigue your interest and give you a good introduction to yoga. Please take a seat. So, what we're going to cover today is a little bit about what is yoga and what is hatha yoga. And we're going to take a really quick look on it. And then the focus will be more on the anatomy, like your muscles, your bones, and how do they connect, and what you're doing what, and is it good or it's not good. And poses. And chakras is like the energy flow that in yoga, yeah. And then last but not least, we're going to look into the back pain, shoulder pain, knee pain. And then the last bit of touch is something fun, acrobatic yoga. So let's start. Before I start, I want to ask you, because here, how many of you have done yoga before? Yeah, and how many of you have never done yoga? I want to ask the people who are raising up their hands now, what do you think? What is yoga? Just anything.
Yoga is like Indian qigong.
Leo, what do you think?
Slower than the usual aerobics.
Yep. And anything else? What about the people who practice it?
Yoga is to stretch my muscles. When I have tension in the muscles, it can give me relaxation.
What do you think?
It's about like coordination movement together with the breathing.
Okay. I find the most common misconception about yoga, including me, before I started, I thought yoga is only a sport. Yoga is all about just stretch. It's very low impact, low touch, and it's for women, for skinny people, for young people, and to get flat abs and tight butt, and it's a religion. And yeah, and then after I get to know it a little bit more, I found part of it is right, but it's nothing is really a complete picture of yoga. So the understanding that I share with you today, I feel yoga for me is, you're like blindfolded and touching the elephant. If 8 people touching the elephant, they will give you 8 different answers. So here I will try to give you as complete and as different opinions as I can, so that you can make your own choices. Just a little bit about the background, and yoga history can be divided into Vedic yoga, pre-classical, classical, and post-classical. And the Vedic yoga, the Vedic is Veda Greek put together in the Sanskrit language. Fanwen is the first part means knowledge, the second part means praise. So maybe 5,000 years ago, dated from history, yoga is more about the praise of some higher power. They didn't define exactly what is a god and who exactly is. They're just praising the knowledge. And I think maybe after 2,000 years, there's some written texts start to explaining it as not only you praise the higher power, but it's more about a self-realization journey into yourself. And a few hundred years afterwards, people think body and the spirit is separated. And the yoga is one of the journey that you can connect your body to your spirit. And they did more recently the post-classical yoga. Then the yoga that we do now, like Ashtanga, Hatha, Yin Yang, and all that, is all just the recent one, the post-classical yoga. And people trying to challenge more and more difficult, more and more twisted and weird poses. So yeah, in the yoga theory, we have 5 bodies of ourselves. The framework is called kosha framework. And what we realize every day is only our physical body that compose our cells, our bones, and muscles. And next level up, we have our energy body, and emotional body, wisdom body, and bliss body. So you can see each different body is focusing on each different things. And I believe yoga is a journey that can help you find your true self, one layer after the other. It's like peeling an onion in some ways. But I think maybe for the gurus, they probably add their emotional wisdom. But for most of us, we probably only think the body as only the first layer, the physical body. And corresponding to the body, the different types of yoga. So Hatha yoga, what we're gonna just talk a little bit about, is yoga force that focuses on the physical body. And Kundalini, Kama, Hana, and Mantra, they focus on different levels. And so just a little bit more about Hatha yoga. Ha means the sun, and Da means the moon. So it's like the Chinese yin yang in some ways, to my understanding, that you try to find, your each move, there's a counter move. Each move, there's a muscle helping you doing the move, and there's a muscle pulling you from doing the move. And there's poses like you bend forward, and the poses that you open up your chest. So it's all about find a balance. And it's the fundamental of yoga in my opinion, because it's focusing on the most elementary layer of ourselves. And it composes our postures and our breath and our meditation. So just a little bit the benefit of yoga before we move to the bones and structures. I find for myself, apart from like all the different types saying like you can be better and more calm, I find for myself I have more awareness of my body. Like if I would see people working, like just during the period of time that I started studying really intensely, I noticed like I can see the bones if their bones are not in line or if their head is twisted, and I don't know, like I guess it's and also I realized a lot of poses that I was trying to really push for before I studied. I realized why I wasn't able to do it, and I realized why I shouldn't do it, and I realized the poses that I was doing, a lot of them, they were doing me more bad than good. So, and for the other ones, cardio or digestive or nerve, I guess it would take longer time for me to realize. So, the interesting part, number one, anatomy. So first, I like to talk a little bit about our spine. So the neck part, or cervical, or chest part, or thoracical, or waist part, or lumbar spine, and the tailbone, or sacrum. And before I studied this, I thought bones are only just calcium, and calcium only. And I realized there are much more than just calcium in our bones. There's some other tissues or veins in the bone. And why yoga is good for our bones is because we do a lot of the moves that you're not doing normally, and it puts different pressure to different part of your bone, your joints. And your bone realizes it needs the higher density for you to be able to do this. So it's a good for your bone to realize it, so you need to accumulate more calcium. And on the graph on the top right corner, you see the white tissue outside is our ligament. So these are now our bones, but they're the good friend of the bones that help you to hold our body together. And this is our skeleton. If you kill everything off, and that will be you and me and everyone, probably. So start from here, our collarbone, clavicles, and our shoulder blade at the back, scapular. And the big bone, you see this bit is our sternum, and here is our rib cage. And come down is our humerus, our arms, and this is our ulna and radius, our forearms. And come down our spine, our big hip bone is ilium, and the big bit of bone here, like opposite to your tailbone, is our pubic bone. And come down to our thigh bone, femur, and our kneecap, which is super important, patella, and then our calf bones. Next, let's move on to the joints. A few different types of joints in our body. The major ones of our joints is the hip joints and our shoulder joints, because it connects our arms and our legs together to our torso. And it is the ball socket joint, because the humerus bone, your shoulder comes like this, and your bone is like this. So your bone should be able to move 360 degrees and be able to reach anywhere. The reason being that you're not able to do so is because your muscle constrains your bone's movement. If your muscle have enough flexibility and enough strength, your hip joints and your shoulder joints should be the most flexible joints on your body. And next we move to the hinge joints, which is mostly our elbows and our knees. Because your elbow supposedly should only be able to do this. It's not able to reach the other side. So that's our hinge joints, including your fingers and your kneecap and your ankles. They are all the hinge joints. And last but not least, the compressive joints. It's our spines, stacked from the bottom of the skeleton, our skull, all the way to our tailbone, one on top of the other. And these are compressive joints. As you can see, each different type of joints offer you different things. Some is for flexibility, the other is for stability. So, next one, just a little bit more detail about the joints. In my opinion, I think joint injury is the worst that you would ever want to get, because if you break your bones, they come back together, and that's about it. But if the thing is, if you break your bones, then you know you break your bones. But if you're injuring your joints, you don't know you're injuring your joints, and you keep injuring them without realizing you're not doing them any good. And then in one day, you suddenly realize that it takes a lot longer for your joints or the other, even for muscle tearing or your ligament to recover than the break of the bones. So if you think about it, there are two bones together, right? If it's only bones and bones, they shouldn't be able to move because they're not, if it's really just like a rough surface, there will be a lot of friction between the bones. So there's one thin layer, I forgot what is it called, but it's very smooth. It's one of the most smooth surfaces in our body that help you to reduce the friction between your bones. And each time when either you're doing your sports or you're doing yoga or anything, your daily activities, what you need to think about is if you're trying to do something, you're not able to do it. For example, if you sit with your crossed leg and your kneecap is up in the air, but is not flying, is not coming down to the floor. And a lot of people, what they do is they press down on their knees. They didn't realize that the major, your big joints, which is your hip joints, give you the most stability and give you the most flexibility. Is not offering the flexibility that you should be doing. Therefore, you're compressing onto your smaller and more vulnerable joints that compensate for your bigger joints. That's why you injure your smaller joints. The same way for your elbow and your shoulder. So if your shoulder is tight, you're doing a lot of stretch. If you do this and that, like sometimes you're doing bad for your elbow because your shoulder is too tight. Your elbow is not strong enough to stretch your shoulder if you're doing the stretch incorrectly. So it's just something for you to think about each time, like where you're really stretching, and if you feel something weird in your joints, is if that's the right place. And ligament. Ligament is another, it's soft tissue that connect between the bones. Ligament is super important because, for example, your core muscle, they originate from your ligament, a lot of them. So it's just something for your knowledge. And back to muscle contraction. Before I thought muscle contraction, only when you press into the muscle, then you contract the muscle. But now I realize that you can contract your muscle by shortening your muscle, and you can contract your muscle by lengthening your muscle. And you can also contract your muscle just by giving it force. If you let your hands loose, the muscle is loose. But if you just hold your feet really tight, and you feel your muscles. So down the yoga track, that you find different contractions for different moves. And here I'd like to introduce you to our two best muscle friends deep inside our body. So the first one is our psoas muscle. It comes from the lumbar spine. Like if you peel all the surface out and take off your organs, then that's your psoas muscle. It originates from your lumbar spine and come over your pelvis, and then ends up at the back of your thigh bone. So why it's really, really important, because this is I think that's the only muscle that connects your upper body and your leg. So each time if you move your leg up, this muscle is helping to do the work. Or if you do anything. So it really connects your upper half and your lower half together. So that's why it's ultra important. It also acts as like a big shelf, so that your organs can rest on this muscle. Otherwise, your organ has nowhere to go. also, some of our survival instinct was first it will be felt from this muscle and come out to tell your body that you need to run. And some of, I don't know if you can, yeah, you can see this is what the muscle is doing for different moves. You raise up your leg, or you tilt your body forward, or you're trying to stretch your thigh out. So you can see the top one is contracting, and that one is contracting as well. This is contracting on one side, stretching on the other side, and the next one is stretching your psoas muscle. It really depends on what you're doing. So I think for a lot of us, we're sitting like this all the time. It means our psoas is contracting. Therefore, you need to compensate it with a lot of stretch. That's a good one. Or even you just do like a lunge. All of these ones are really good for our psoas to contract, to stretch up. And abdominal muscles. For a long time, I thought abdominal muscle was only the layer at the six-pack outside. And then I realized it's much more than we know about. So it has 4 layers. The deep inside layer is our transverse, number 1. And the number 2 is our internal oblique on the side. And third layer, external oblique, connecting the middle and the side. And last but not least is our pretty much six-pack. Yeah. So what I think is that everyone has core muscles. Yeah. And the most important layer is actually the transverse layer, because this is helping you to protect your organ and hold everything together. So therefore, next time that you exercise your core muscles, it's more for you to feel. It's more, so if you exercise your core muscle, some of it is you raise up your leg, some if you're squatching on the front. So it's really try to feel which part you're working on. Then I think we'll have a better effect for all of the exercise that you do. And also for the core exercise, before I thought sit-up is really good for the core exercise, and now I realize because we're doing this already every day, you don't need to do any more of this to help, because in the end, your shoulder will get tightened and your pectoral muscle, your chest muscle get shortened. So instead, a lot of the safer core exercise muscle is you lay on the mat or on the floor anywhere like flat, and then you can feel, you either use your hands or your legs to avoid this type of move. A bit more about the abdominals. So you see the transverse is holding our internal organs, and the obliques mostly for turning your body around, and the six flags is for flex and rotate on torso. And another one is for a little time when we do back bend. Some people, they were just completely let their core muscle go, they just like that. But what it was not really good is, if you're not, so the purple ball is all your organs together. If you compress your muscle, then help your organ to evenly distribute. Therefore, when you bend, it puts less pressure on each single, like on the spot of your lower spine, and help to protect your lower spine. Next one is the muscle twist. I never realized when we twist ourselves, what is our internal organ is doing. So next one. So before, it was a normal setting of your liver, your pancreas, or your intestines. But when you twist, what it does is it really squeezes the blood out of the small vessels into the main veins. And when you twist back, the fresh blood comes back. So it really helps to the circulate of the blood of the internal organ. That's why twisting is quite good. And next one, we're going to look at a few poses. Usually people sort of divide the poses in yoga to standing, sitting, balancing, and inversions. And below, I would just try to introduce a few ones that everyone will know is the yoga pose. Most of you who do yoga would, at some stage, would do this so that give you a better feeling of this. Before we move to the poses, it's for all the exercise. It's like cutting a watermelon, right? This side, and the halfway, and up and down. So it's the same way that we do all our movement. So the coronal plane is front to back, and the Sangito divides you from the midline, left and right. And it transfers your up and your lower half. So some terms is adduction is, so if you squeeze your leg together, coming closer to the middle line is your adduct. And if you flex yourself, if you're doing this, so if you're doing this, you flex your knee. And if you're doing this, this is your extender knee, and this is flex your knee. And another one that take me a long time to figure out is internal and external rotate. So for example, if you raise up your arm, actually what your shoulder is doing an external rotation to help you to lift your arm up. But if you're doing this is the internal rotation. So each of the yoga poses, everywhere that you need to move your arm or your leg is either doing the internal or external rotation. And I think it's ultra important for you to understand. Otherwise, you're probably doing the wrong, exercising on the wrong muscles. First one, downward facing dog. I would like to ask for a volunteer. You can do it? You just do your own downward facing dog. No. I think this is a pretty good one. We didn't practice before. I just calling it out. So you can hold it as long as you like. But if you're tired, you can just get back. So downward facing dog for all the girls who practice yoga. A lot of the problem that I had in the beginning is I feel there's too much weight in my hand. And actually, the weight of the downward facing dog should be at your heel. Don't move your hands. Don't move. So the perfect distance is if you move to a high plank. Perfect distance is your hand and your feet should be as far as from each other in your down dog. So move the down dog now. That's where your downward dog should be going. And maybe you can come a little closer. So what I want to try to feel is, you feel the external rotate of your shoulder, but internal rotate of your wrist, so that you don't put too much pressure on your pinky finger. You feel the squeeze your shoulder blades together, and the arch on your back is a bit too much, so you need to tighten the core a little bit more. That's it. And then try to squeeze my hand. Yeah. So if you squeeze your hand, help you to tilt your pelvis further, and then try to contract, try to flex your ankle a little bit more. It will help you to stretch the calf muscle and help your heel to come down. Okay?
But my elbow should be straight or?
No, your elbow have a little bit macro bend in your elbow. That's a good question. You can come up now. For the elbow question, one thing that I find, and I notice as well, is like a lot of time we push into the elbow, because the elbow is supposed to go this way, right? It doesn't help you to go the other way. If you press this way too much, it's really bad for your elbow angles. Same way for your knees. Your knee is supposed to go this way, but your knee is not supposed to go up. So if you press your knees too much, it's called a hyperextension of your knee. So what I can say, if you see the normal femur in your kneecap, your calf muscle, it should be in a straight line. But if you say maybe this is the femur, no, this is your thigh muscle, this joint is my kneecap, and this is your leg. But if you press this too much, if you keep doing this, and in the end, so this is top of your hip, and this is your ankle. They will no longer be a straight line. They will be like a curve, and it's not very good for your patella, your kneecap. I suggest if you time after this, you can Google hyperextension and give you a good picture of the hyperextension knee and hyperextension elbow look like. I find this really, really common because when we were in our primary school, we were asked to stand up, right? And then chest forward, hip backwards like that. But then I realized it put you completely out of sync. So seriously, completely out of sync. So let's just talk a little bit about the standing pose. In the beginning of the session, that maybe ask someone to stand. So the first thing about standing is the distance between your feet. Because if your feet is too wide, your hip is here, so your joints are not on top of each other. So first and foremost, the distance between your feet. And the second is you don't want to stand one leg in front of the other. And another thing that I've noticed when we're in the bus stop a lot of times, see how people wait for their buses. A lot of people like this and like that. So if you like that, think about it. This leg doesn't have any weight on itself, right? And if you press too much into this leg, your pelvis, if I do it exaggerating, your pelvis all the way coming to this side and your pelvis tilted. And your upper body is straight up, which means your spine is not in a straight line, the same way as whatever you do. So I would really highly suggest that bring awareness to your pelvis, whatever you do in any sports, because if your pelvis is not even, then your spine will not be in the pose. And come back for standing. So first is the distance between your feet. And second is a little bit bend from your knee, a little bit, yeah. And tighten up this muscle here without losing a bend. Up here. Another thing is our pelvis. Put your hands up here and roll it forward a little bit. Forward. And then tighten up the core. You see when she tighten up her core, her chest lift up. And then squeeze the shoulder blade. And then when you squeeze the shoulder blade, your shoulder automatically, your hands, your palm facing forward, and your neck come back just a tiny little bit. That's a perfect stay. Take this way. So let's come back to the dumbbell. What I was mentioning just now is the outward rotation of your shoulder and the inward rotation of your wrist, and the contraction of your thigh muscle to help your hamstring to relax more into the pose, and squeeze the inner thigh, help your hip to go up even higher, and also pressing down to your toe, to the sole of your feet, so that you contract the front side of your muscle and let your calf relax more. The thing with muscle really interesting that I noticed is when you contract, you don't feel that much. It's only when you stretch you feel the muscle stretching. But it's difficult for you to move into a pose only when you know you're stretching something. It's easier for you to control which one is contracting. So if you know you want to stretch some muscles, and you need to figure out which muscle you need to contract to let you go into the stretch. And then you bring your awareness to the one that you need to contract, and it will help you to settle in the stretch and to relax in the stretch even further. And next one, Navasana or boat pose. So this one, you supposedly in the end you'll be like a V shape. But what I found instead of V shape, what people, if this is the upper back and this is the leg, what usually happens is they round the back. And the first thing you need to do if you want to do this is probably a little bit difficult. You want to contract your core muscle first, and then this one will really test your psoas muscle that I just mentioned, because you're going to lift up your leg, and then the muscle that lifts up your leg most is your psoas muscle. And squeeze the leg together and arch your back a little bit to protect your lower back, and squeeze the shoulder blade and then bottom leg. Squeeze the shoulder blades together, and also activate your arms. Activate your arms will help you to squeeze your shoulder blade to both toes. Next one, shoulder stand. Do you want to come again? What's the shoulder stand? No, not headstand, shoulder stand. So your hands on your waist. No, this is great. No, look at that.
你的脚要起来，
对
要把腿撑起来。
So first thing you want to do is you want to activate this muscle first, and then rotate the shoulder out. Instead of round your back, you want to press out from here, so you relax. You don't have to be super straight. Just let your leg go first. Let's work on this bit first. So you want to press from here, so open up your chest instead of round your back, and contract here. And now you want to try to do is tilt this forward. Yeah. As soon as you tilt your pelvis forward, your leg will go out straight. And then squeeze my arm. Yeah. So each time, if you want to roll inwards, yeah. Squeeze it out. Yeah. And flex your toes. As if you're standing on the ceiling. And the most important thing, a little bit tight. There should be a little bit distance underneath your neck, so that you're standing on your shoulder, not standing on your neck. So this is the ultra most important thing. You should come out a little bit. No, come out a little bit. Come out a little bit more. So you feel there's more space, right? Because if you're trying to get up
then my
straight,
hip is backward.
well, that's no problem. The problem is the root of this pose is your feet. Although it's in the air, but it's a root of the pose. Because as soon as you activate your feet, you activate your thigh. You activate your thigh, you activate your hip. Because how straight you are doesn't really matter. The matter is if you have that little bit of space underneath your neck. Because otherwise, if you really press into the straight, then there's no space on your neck. You're really not doing your spine. And so it will be suffer. So that's the shoulder stand. As you can see, you press your bicep first, and you squeeze your butt. So the moment you squeeze your butt, and then tilt your pelvis a bit forward, and then contract your muscle, engage your quadriceps. And last but not least, super important is you flex your toes. Super important, flex your toes. So in the end, you feel your chest is open. You don't feel you're running the chest. And then you feel there's space between your neck and the floor. If you press this too much into the floor, it's not many breathe. And next one, wheel pose. The half bridge. Do you feel you warmed up to do it, or you don't have? Because usually you don't. So before you move into the pose, so think about think about. So if this is a person and it comes like this, so this side of all your muscle is stretching. You need to think about what muscle you're contracting first. So you're contracting your glutes muscle, contract your hamstring, and and contract your shoulder blades, help you to open up your chest. And more importantly, then you look at how you rotate. So again, you outward rotate your shoulder and help your trapeze muscle to come together. And last but not least, your toe. You need to press down into your toe to help engage your inner thigh. So, but put a little bit later. So, how you move into the pose? You come here, and down. Your feet walk a bit closer, and you start doing a bridge pose. Just and down, slowly down here. Down. Come all the way down.
Down?
Yeah, come all the way down. Because I don't want you to move directly into that. I want you to do if you want. And then up again. A bit higher. And then down. And last time, then come up. And then come down. And then this time you put your hands up here. And also when you move up into the pose, you don't want your legs split open. Because if your legs split open, it presses all the pressure into your lower back. So your knee is directly facing the straight. So as your shoulder, you don't want to, when you move out, your hands go out like that. So if I look from this side to you, I shouldn't see anything coming out of these two lines. Okay? So first engage your lower back muscle first, and then press forward, and then engage your arm. And you feel the, see if you want to engage here a little bit more. And then roll your chest over. A little bit apart. If you want to try, you can walk a little bit. You can walk your hands and then follow with your hands. Put your hands up. Yes. Forward. And then forward. Roll this side first. And then bring the knees to the chest. Give it a hand. Go from left to right. Because each time if you do something extremely opening, and you need to do a compensate one, because otherwise to put it back to position. And this is still the wheel pose. So this is come to the, we finished our poses part and talk a little bit about the energy part. Chakras. In yoga, chakra is a subtle energy center of ourselves, and it corresponds to where our nerve is the most sensitive. And one of the yoga type that we mentioned earlier, Kundalini yoga, is to help you to connect your chakras. As you can see, maybe you see this picture before somewhere, or maybe you haven't. So start from the bottom is your foot. That's your foot chakra. And come up to your hips. And then next one, the yellow one, is 2 fingers under your navel. And the green one is your heart, in between your chest. And the blue one is your throat. And the purple one is in between your eyes. And the top one is on the crown. So each different chakra has, sorry, look at this first. Sorry. So each different chakra has each different physical focus. Also each different chakra has different physical, different emotional, and different color. And you see they have their shape is different as well. I think this must have something to do with there must be some reasons, but right now I don't quite understand. As you can see, we can move back to the summary part a little bit. Okay, so your foot chakra is your survival chakra, survival crisis. If you move to a new place and if you stress out, you can't find a job, you can't find your next meal, probably you need to practice more standing pose to feel grounded. if you stress out and you think the world doesn't like you, this is probably your hip chakra. You need to practice a bit more hip opening. If you feel like low energy, not very confident, and everyone else is better than you, it's your navel chakra. You need to practice a little bit more, like warrior poses and things like that. And you feel like your life is out of sync, and nothing is in harmonious with the other. What you want to do is you want to press on the chest opening. The next one, the next real level is not really pose related. So if you feel the communication problem, you can probably practice breathing and meditation. I think this is, and also for if you feel like you're out of creativity, you probably can go home and meditate. And so as for the crown, look for enlightenment. And these are the details. And also, yeah, if you quickly look at the chakra and elements, in yoga it believes there are 5 key elements. So the water, fire, air, space, and earth. And they believe each of us, individual, is a unique combination of these 5 different elements. And these 5 different elements of the alignment of the body. So next one, I want you to stand maybe facing that way. I want you to maybe half arm distance from this. And then reach your hands on the floor. And a little bit closer. And once you get here, you want to feel, so again, your whole body is in the same line. Like you don't want to twist here, but your upper body is not twisting, everything is twisting. Okay? So if here is a pivot point, I want you to try rotate your body, your feet as well. Just a little bit, until you feel, if you feel there's anything in your elbow, stop. Yeah. So this will help you to feel stand straight, because if your arm is like this, it's difficult for you to stand upright. But if your arm is open on the side, it's difficult for you to do this. So if you have some time in the day, just put your hand against a wall and try to rotate and help you to come up to a nice straight line.
Next try.
Yeah. And also, as you can see the guy here, because he's too overly reaching forward, when he stands up against the wall, you feel weird on his neck, means you're too far off. And too far off from normal, yeah. And also, what you can try to do is, when you're asleep at night, and if your bed is hard enough, take out a pillow and see if you're comfortable to sleep like that. And if you're not comfortable, it means your head is already feel like a little bit too used to the forward. And then next to the back pain. So 2 major reasons for back pain. One is, like mommy carrying babies like that. A lot of them carrying like this because they're pressing too much at the posterior side of your spine, and if your vertebrae, so if your spine is like this before, if you go that way, they're pressing too much at this side, but leave that side open. So it's the opposite. If you're doing this too much, you're pressing into the front of your spine and squeezing the disc between your spine out to the back. So there's 2 ways. And I want to invite another person. You want to come? No, if you're wearing a dress, the guy here. I want you to come here to do a plank.
So I'm just doing that.
Yeah, just plank. I want you to feel your elbow come forward a little bit more. Because your shoulder is ahead of your elbow.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's pretty good, because a lot of people, when they plank, their lower back automatically sink. They were doing maybe like that. So it's not doing any good for your spine because your core muscle is not protecting your spine in any case. But I think this is very good.
Mattress shattering.
So a lot of the core exercise that we're doing, that we're thinking is doing our spine good, is actually not doing our spine any good, including the sit-ups and a lot of the plank. If you really do this plank like that, it's really not doing any good because if your lower spine is like that, you really need to engage your core, tilt your pelvis forward, and then feel you get a straight spine from your shoulder all the way to your top. And also each time you're doing all the plank poses, what is really important is feel that you're pressing out from your heel so that you always feel you're standing on something. Then your whole body will be in a straight line. And we can discuss it more exercise later. The next one is for the knee pain. I didn't prepare a slide because I suffered knee pain a lot myself. And my reason, I don't know, Fu Tian, do you ever have knee pain?
Horse.
I went to physio multiple times and I realized what happened was my right knee had, it is swollen at this part of my right knee, like the outer edge of the lower part of it. The people who do hiking a lot or running, they would have runner's knee or hiker's knee or something. And then I didn't believe that before. The reason is coming from my back muscle because your butt is supposed to help you to walk every day. If your butt is not strong enough, then you're using this muscle here to help you to walk. If you're using this muscle to help you to walk every day, this muscle gets tighter and tighter. And therefore your kneecap, this is your leg, is your kneecap. Your kneecap only is supposed to move up and down. It's not supposed to move left and right. So if one side of this muscle is pulling your kneecap this way, your inner side muscle is pulling your kneecap the other way. If this muscle is stronger, then it pulls your kneecap to the right all the time and rub against your ligament and your cartilage, which is really bad. And then it creates the water or the tissue come here. And also, even worse, it's once it comes, if you didn't realize it fast enough, then the tissue would become hard itself. So it will be even difficult later to break down. So for knee pain, for everyone who has knee pain, there's a few exercises that right now I do is you really try to, so just think about so your leg forming a square here, and instead of doing all the way stand up and down, you just do a little bit. And when you do this exercise, you feel your right butt is super squeezed by itself. And then will help you to strengthen your back muscle. And then on the other hand, or some other exercise you could do to stretch out your IT band, and so that you can balance out your outer thigh and your inner thigh. In the end, you're moving. Right now, I think I'm almost there. Yeah. Last but not least is something that I'm super passionate about. That's hard, by the way. It's me and my boyfriend. Yay. Just quick. How are you coming out again?
Exercise.
It's something that I think really beautiful. I would really like to share with you. think it has the wisdom of yoga and the dynamic of acrobatic, and really creating a connection and the trust between people. It can be practiced between girls and girls, girls and guys as well. Yeah. I think it's really elegant and really skillful. It's my personal opinion.
Do you have any clips of you doing that?
I don't have any clips. I have pictures, no clips. Hopefully, I'll have clips soon. Yeah. And last but not least, if you have any questions, I'm really happy to discuss. That comes to the end of my discussion. Thank you very much.
I'm interested in how you got into yoga in the first place.
How did I get into yoga? You know, it sounds a little bit random, but when I first got into yoga, I was buying a book. I was walking around in the bookstore. I ran into this beautiful, amazing lady standing next to me. And then I don't know how we started talking to each other. And then I said, oh, like, I have some back pain and all that. Because you're around in a fitness session of book. Oh, she said, oh, you should look into yoga. I said, oh, really? What's that? And then she recommended me, she said, don't buy the books with photos and pretty women. She said, that's not the book you should be buying. She said, this Hui Lan, like the book of, it's a black, white, and all of the norms and what explaining poses by poses. She said, you should look into that one. And I said, oh, and she said, oh, I'm a yoga instructor myself. That was when I was in high school. And I was like, oh, and she said, she has 2 kids. And I was shocked to believe that she has 2 kids. And that's what.
She's hot.
Yeah, and then you can see she's not very big. She's tiny, but she's super strong. And that's what first encouraged me to get into yoga. Yeah, that was my first encounter.
Do you do meditation after yoga?
I'm trying to, but I'm not good. Either my mind gets drifted apart. I don't know how to do it very well. I hope after I overcome like the physical level will help me to open up the bed. Yeah.
I wants to ask about the workout tips. I know a lot of people do workouts in 3-1 time, but you do realize that you're actually doing a lot of wrong poses if you don't pay attention to it. So if you want to have private tutoring time, you can come forward.
No, I think that the minor little changes really make difference in the yoga. I did my learning with a Canadian lady. She's 62, and she's amazingly flexible and amazingly strong for her age. She doesn't look like 30, but I think she looks like 45. Like she can do all the handstand, and you can see she's doing it not struggling, but with peace and ease. That's incredible. And she told us, you guys are just still at the physical level. You went down the road, you would slowly understand. Yeah. And also, actually, just one thing, the hands moves, they have like hundreds of them, meaning different things. I don't know all of that yet. So all these little things matters. And also, just for your information, I started a website called justyoga.com.hk. I haven't polished, I haven't uploaded anything yet, but I got the domain. And my spirit, and my logo is just yoga more than yoga. So, and in the later half of this year, I'm gonna plan to train to be a Pilates instructor as well, with more core-oriented focus. And I started teaching both group and private class for the last half a year. So if you're interested in training, you're more than welcome.
Can you give some suggested simple workout routine for the office?
To the office?
Yeah, like
Office
when I
working
come back
days.
home after 10 hours work, at home, what posture would you suggest to relax my shoulders, back, and stuff?
I suggest you stand against a wall for like a little bit first and take a few deep breaths and just to forget about everything. And I really suggest is you inhale and exhale loud, Because then one thing is you feel your breath, and the other thing is you hear your breath. The moment you hear your breath, I think it's really bring yourself within your body. And if you want to start, you can start with the shoulder stretch. What you could do is, if you lie on your bed, you can move to one edge of your bed, and then you feel this bit of your muscle is contact with the floor, and then you just roll yourself half. But never roll yourself too much so that you feel your elbow is not comfortable. And then you can put something under your head, and then just hold here for a little bit, and then do the contra opposite. Come this one, and then but you want to make sure that your upper body is straight.